Now that you've performed your thinking exercise, the skill that I'm going to discuss here is walking. So I'm just going to go down the list and discuss two organismic constraints, two task constraints, and two environmental constraints. So from an organismic perspective, some of the constraints that can influence that is my leg length or my motivation to walk. For example, if I am shorter, then I have a constraint of how far each of my steps takes. And my motivation, saying that I'm walking to the fridge for a snack, that's motivation enough for me to get up and move. From a task perspective, we can think of an example that would be the shoes that I'm wearing. So if the shoes that I'm wearing are high heels, we know that my gait pattern will be slightly different than if I'm wearing a pair of comfortable sneakers or if I'm walking barefoot. Another task constraint would be just the nature of walking. For example, if I was a smaller child, the task itself is very challenging for me to perform because I have to maintain my balance. However, since I am a functioning adult, the challenge of the task is really removed. From an environmental constraint, we can think of the surface upon which that I'm walking. So if I'm walking on carpet or if I'm walking on slippery hardwood, my two gait patterns will definitely be different. And another environmental constraint that we can think of is the effect of gravity. Saying that I am walking underwater, my gait pattern will be different compared to when I'm walking on land. I hope this exercise really helped you better understand the nature of the constraints and the way that they interact with one another as we develop through the process of motor development. So after going over the constraints, we're going to go over the second part of our lecture today, and we're going to talk about research designs. So there are three main types of research designs that we're going to go over, and the first one is longitudinal. And in a longitudinal research design, an individual or group is observed over time. And we track how an individual or group changes throughout our observation. So in this study, if we are going to see how people run, we're going to have Group A come in when they're age 2 in 2014. Then we'll have the same group come in when they are age 4, so 2 years later. And the same group will come in again in another 2 years, and we can see exactly how each of the individuals have changed their running pattern as they've matured. And this differs from a cross-sectional study, as individuals or groups of different ages are observed, and the changes inferred, not actually observed. So a problem that we have with longitudinal research design oftentimes is that the studies take a really long time to complete. In order to combat that, we use a cross-sectional design, where we'll have the running pattern of a group of 2-year-olds come in. We'll have a second group of 4-year-olds, and we'll have a third group of 6-year-olds come in, and we'll observe how each of the age groups move differently. And based on that, we can infer how people's gait pattern changes as they develop. Another research design, which is known as sequential or mixed longitudinal, is a mini longitudinal study with overlapping areas. So this kind of lets us have the best of both worlds, where we get to observe some of the change that takes place, but we also get to open up our study to a broader age group. So for example, we're going to have Group A come in and observe their walking in 2014, then we'll observe them again when they are age 4. Simultaneously, we'll have a second group of people come in, and we'll have them come in at 4 and then again at 6. So from this, we're really able to see how the changes in running or walking take place from ages 2 to 6 by being able to observe some of the change, but also inferring some of it as well. So this is kind of an example of a sequential design that we have here. Now we can see that we have two main groups. This cohort was born in 2000 and this cohort was born in 1995. So cross-sectionally, we can observe the differences between 5-year-olds and 10-year-olds. And then we can also measure longitudinally how this group changes from age 5 to 10 to 15. And over here, we can see how this group changes from 10 to 15 to 20. So you have two mini longitudinal studies, and you can also compare how two different groups of people born at different times will be moving differently. Excuse me there. So for example, we can see that if children who were born in 2000 tend to have different hand-eye coordination compared to children born in 1995, and we can maybe attribute some of the differences in their manual dexterity to the amount of time they spend playing with technology. So if we see here that this group is different at age 10 than this group, we can also infer changes that take place between generations. Alright, so we've gone over quite a few concepts today, and I just want to wrap this up with a quick summary of everything that we've gone over. So at the start of this lecture, we really defined what is motor development, and went over some defining terms. So motor development is the examination of the continuous, sequential, age-related changes that take place in motor behavior. So defined in simple terms, it's how the way we move changes as we age. And the way that we move is shaped by a series of constraints. And these can be broken down into individual, environmental, and task constraints. Individual constraints are either structural or functional. Structural meaning body size, functional meaning motivation or psychological factors. Environmental constraints, which can be ecological or they can be sociocultural. And task constraints, which can be the rules of the game, as well as the equipment used to perform the tasks that we're trying to perform. In order to study motor development, researchers use longitudinal, cross-sectional, and sequential research. Longitudinal research involves the observation of a group of individuals over a period of time. While this is great because we can observe the changes taking place, sometimes it is very difficult to administer. So an alternative solution is cross-sectional, where we have people of different age groups come in and we infer the changes that take place in the development of each of the groups. And finally, we have sequential research, which really allows us to see the best of both worlds, where we get to observe some of the changes that take place and we get to infer some of the other changes. So I hope this lecture really helped out, and it had to be broken up into two parts because it is a very long lecture. Most of our lectures from here on out will be following the same format. And just another reminder that you have a quiz and you have one more lecture and 2 assignments for the rest of this module. Have a good day, and I will see you guys in the next lecture.